social marketing actually first appeared in 1971 in an article that Kotler and Zaltman wrote, talking about how, this marketing thing we do in the commercial sector, I bet it's got a lot of application in promoting causes and in changing behaviors. So for the past 20 years, it's been pretty solidly used in public health, and now we're looking at it more in the environment and in community mobilizing. Who does social marketing? Primarily people who work in governmental agencies. People who, like people in the United States with our CDC, Departments of Health, Departments of Ecology, utilities, the World Health Organization. Those would be the major types of governmental agencies. Oops. Where did I go with that? All right. Nonprofit organizations also. American Cancer Society certainly has efforts and energies to get women to get mammograms and men to get prostate exams. The Dental Association, organ donation. So nonprofit organizations, when they are promoting a behavior, are doing social marketing. And then there's foundations who often fund these. For-profit organizations also do social marketing campaigns. There are pharmaceutical companies and certain manufacturers who then do things like our Home Depots, which is a big gardening place that promotes water conservation and does workshops on how to use less fertilizers. And of course, they've got the organic ones to substitute for it, so they don't put themselves out of business. But for-profit organizations get involved in this as well. So there are other ways than changing individual behaviors to impact our major social issues. If we take a look at things like technology, well, if we had automatic seatbelts, we wouldn't have to do as much to convince people or promote people to put their seatbelt on if they were automatic. I know that 2 years ago at the Mayo Clinic, they announced that they felt like they had a pill now that would help people quit smoking. So maybe someday we won't need our quit line. And there can be laws banning food advertising, kids' food advertising. That may very well, in fact, help us someday not have to do some social marketing relative to childhood obesity. We can certainly influence things through fines. And we can certainly influence things through greater infrastructures like bike lanes. The social marketer has a role to play here, however. In our state seatbelt campaign, I worked with the legislature to understand that we were at 82% seatbelt usage, and they wanted us to get up to 90%. And the people that I interviewed that weren't wearing seatbelts, and the research that we did, convinced me to then share with them, there's no way you're going to get people to 90% unless you have a primary seatbelt law where you can pull them over if they're not wearing a seatbelt. Because they feel safe. Or they don't feel like it's a big deal. So for you to say, buckle up, we love you, isn't going to move the meter. But if we have a fine, and if people will get pulled over, you'll get your next 8%. So social marketers, who are the eyes and ears of the customer, can be responsible for sharing with policymakers what it's going to take to move the market. So I'm going to share about 12 principles for success. Things that over the last 15 years that I've learned make these things work well or won't work well. And it's like you could give everybody in this room the same recipe, and we could all go home and follow directions, but it won't all turn out the same. And part of it has to do with some success principles. I'm not going to read them here because they're on each one of these slides. The very first one is to, for sure, take advantage of what's been done before that works. On the left is a poster that is in Washington State. What it says here is, when your pet goes on the lawn, remember it doesn't just go on the lawn. And there's one of our Puget Sound waterways there. And it's telling people to pick up after their pet. Well, I was at an EPA conference about 5 years ago and was out looking on the tables at all the materials, and I saw the one on the right. Remember, you're not just walking the dog, pick up after your pet. Clearly, Michigan, which is the state on the right, had seen the Washington State poster and made it their own, which is fantastic. We can do that in the public sector. When I was at the bank, I couldn't call up my friend at Washington Mutual, who's the marketing director, and say, you've got a really cool poster. Could I just put our bank's name on that poster? I couldn't even call her up and say, hey, how's that Saturday free checking working for you? You can do that in the public sector. That is what's so wonderful. We have social marketing listserv that anybody can sign up for. And if you're doing an effort, you can just email this listserv of over, I think we're up to 1,600 people, something like that. And say, has anybody done a campaign to get people to pick up after their pet? You'll get back at least 10 people from around the world who will tell you something they did. So find out what's been done before and use that. Scoop the Poop. Now, I'm a real fan of branding. And I like Scoop the Poop. I think it's fine. Maybe there's a better one. But why can't we use that everywhere? I mean, you get pick up after your pet waste, pet owners. Let's just use Scoop the Poop. And make it around the world so that we know it whenever we see it, just like the P for park. The second principle is to start with target markets that are most ready for action. So let's take blood donation. That would be an example of community mobilization. People who work in blood centers know that it costs about 10 times more to get a new blood donor than it does to keep a current one. So if you could get your current donors to give one more time, in fact, in our area, they have calculated that if we could just get 10% of current donors to donate one more time, they would reach their goal. So they put a lot of their effort and energy in marketing to new customers as well as to current customers. In fact, I mean, you get an email every 6 months from them if you give them your email address. They call you. When you get there the first time, they greet you, and when you're done, they give you cookies and milk. And so they make you feel just wonderful. And they know the other advantage to the current donors is that the person, when they walk in, they know their routine. They also know that their blood is probably lower risk, that they won't have some reaction. And so starting with people and focusing your efforts and energy on a group that is more open to and ready to do the action is one of the very, very important principles. Another one is to promote single, simple, doable behaviors. A colleague of mine, Doug McKinsey-Moore, always says, you got to get it down to the behavior that there isn't another behavior behind it. So eat healthy has a whole bunch of other behaviors behind it. Eat vegetables even has a whole bunch of other things behind it. Eat 5 fruits and vegetables is even more specific. And then in the fine print, at least a half cup serving. That's what you want to get down to. You want to get down to single, simple, and then also doable behaviors, which means things that people actually are willing to do. Often when we're looking at selecting a behavior for a campaign, we will make an initial list of all the potential ones. And then we'll narrow down to those that seem pretty singular and simple. But the most important part is to then find out what's the demand for this behavior. How willing are people to do this one? And if it turns out that even though it's single and simple, but people are not willing to do it, it moves to the bottom of the list. So we want to go for things that make all of those. So we've had a campaign probably for about 5 years now in the U.S. called Change a Light, Change the World, where we're getting people to move to compact fluorescent light bulbs. And so they take pledges online. And with the amount of pledges that they got this last year, they calculated 4.7 trillion less pounds of greenhouse gases just from the pledges that were done online. The fourth is to really understand the barriers to behavior change. So there was a day, I remember, when they did not have plastic bags at the airport for you to put your stuff in. And yet they all wanted us to have that stuff all out of our pockets and all out of the things. And so finally they got to, at least the airport where I am, they have plastic bags right there that are the quart-sized bags that you can put your stuff in if you forgot. And I've noticed now that they hardly even ever use them anymore because people are now trained to do this. It's the norm. But that would be understanding why people don't want to do something. And I think I'll talk about this in the next hour, but I love to have people, for a social marketing effort, make a list of at least 10 reasons. I'm sure there's 10. Make a list of at least 10 reasons that your market does not want to do the behavior. And if you're not the market, by the way, you probably won't know what those are. Best to go ask them. Make a list of those 10 behaviors. And once you've got that list, I swear, I put it in a very safe place. I mean, I even recommend put it under your pillow and sleep on it. Because it is so precious. If you can find out why somebody doesn't want to do something, you've got inspiration. It is the most inspirational step in the whole learning process, is to take the time to find out, I wonder why they don't want to do this. I wonder why they're not currently doing it. So the barriers. Remember how I was talking about the marketers have to do a better job of figuring out what benefit there is? There's this great campaign in Chesapeake Bay called Save the Crabs, Then Eat 'em. Spring rains wash excess fertilizer from our area to the Chesapeake Bay, where blue crabs have been rapidly disappearing. So skip the lawn fertilizer in the fall. The lunch you save may be your own. So blue crabs are a big deal there in Chesapeake Bay, and what they want, the fertilizer in the spring was killing the baby blue crabs. The nitrates, I think it is, that got into the water there were harmful for these baby crabs, so they wanted them to skip spring fertilizer and only fertilize in the fall. And when I first saw this, I thought, they understand WIFM. Did you know everybody listens to the WIFM has the biggest market share, even here in Ireland? Did you know that? It does. It's got the biggest market share. Everybody's listening to WIFM. You know what it stands for. What's in it for me? We're all listening to that. Even those of us who think we may even have a big heart, we're listening to WIFM. We're listening to what's in it for the world or for my cause. So we're all listening to WIFM. So we have got to tune in. And we've got to play on WIFM. And we've got to create benefits for the person whose behavior you're trying to change. Woo. Sometimes this thing goes backwards. So here's some of the other parts of their promotion. So that's a bumper sticker on the top, and the lunch you save may be your own, and protect the crab population, and spring fertilizing helps grow our dependence on Louisiana. You know, Seattle, where I live, we're really known for our salmon, and so I'm on an effort to get a campaign in Washington on Save the Salmon. So we can borrow that. The sixth principle is to use all tools in the toolbox. The product, the price, the place, and the promotion. And when we talk in the next hour after break, we'll talk about why that sequence is really important. But a couple of examples of this. I know when I was in Cape Town, South Africa, about 6 years ago, and I was teaching there at the University of Cape Town. There was a student who told me, wondered if I knew about their program called Toot and Scoot. Yeah, do you have Toot and Scoot here? No. You do? No. Do they call it that?
No, just want to call it the same principle.
So cool. This is so cool. So if their target market were people who were driving, professionals, who would go out after work, working professionals who go out to work, go to dinner, go to a game, drinking, and then drive home. And what they wanted them to do, for years, was call a taxi. So what's a barrier to somebody who's gone to a restaurant after work to calling a taxi to go home versus drive their car? Like, absolutely. I need my car tomorrow morning. I mean, I have to take a taxi back there. And then where's the car going to be that night? And so, of course, people don't take their taxi home when they've driven. So, this was in Johannesburg. They saw this. What they did was they got these scooters that are collapsible. And what you do is you call Toot and Scoot. And they come out on a scooter, and they collapse the scooter, and they put it in the trunk of the car. Then they drive the person home, and then they get their scooter out of the trunk, and then they wave off and go home. I understand that it was about $15 US dollars. But, I mean, the DUI could be $900. And this program is very successful there. But see, many marketers usually think of, let's just promote not drinking and driving. See, that's not words very rarely, I have found, very rarely move the market very much. They can help, and they can make sure people know about a program like Toot and Scoot. But we need products. We need services in order to really often overcome the barriers. So that's why that barriers list is so important. And that's why all tools in this toolbox are important to get the behaviors we want changed. So I often try to work really hard to think, I know we want people to exercise more or walk every day. Or actually, well, the Department of Health wanted us to start walking 10,000 steps a day. I was proud of them for the specificity. That's good. Very specific. 10,000 steps a day. I know what you want, and but how am I going to know if I did it? So a barrier to taking 10,000 steps a day, besides time and all those other things, well, how far have I already gone? Because you see, if a person was really intended to do 10,000, and it was dinner time, and they'd only done 8, it would inspire them to take a quick walk for the 2,000. So for the people that intended the behavior, we need to give people things like speedometers. I would really like it if car manufacturers would have a device so that when we take off on a road trip to go to the grocery store or to pick up a kid from the soccer game, that we actually plug in, when we get our gas, we enter in the dollar amount we spent for the gas. And when we get home, we push a little button, and it tells us how much that trip cost us. See, we do not give people feedback. Typically people want to do the right thing. And yet we're not giving them a speedometer. I'm thinking someday, this is really far off, someday we'll have a little microchip that will tell us how many calories we've had that day. And so when we're ordering dinner, or thinking about dinner, we go, oh my gosh, I'm already up to 1,500. I think I'll just have a salad. So someday, that's my dream. That's my dream. You know, and that's an infrastructure. That's technology. Because I do think we want to do the right stuff. I do think we want to be healthy and safe and protect the environment. We're not giving people the things that they need in order to make the decisions that would make that happen. What's a barrier in our state? 0.08 is anything above 0.08. What is it here? Same? 0.08? Okay, I thought I might have been higher. So 0.08. Okay. So what's a barrier? So I've been out to dinner, I've been at a party, and what's a barrier to not driving if I'm over 0.08? How do you know you're 0.08? Well, by golly, they had these little test strips at my grocery store one day that I can a little matchbook, and you open it up and you put the test strip on your tongue for 20 seconds, and it turns a shade. And on the back of that, there's a little color wheel. And if it's dark brown, it means you're above 0.08. And if it's light brown, it means it's right around there. And if it's not at all, you're just fine. So this is giving somebody a mechanism so that they could make the choice that they would want to make. And then I read in the paper one day that our policeman in one town in the Seattle area went to all of the pubs and bars in their town on St. Patrick's Day and passed them out, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, even if it isn't just that one time only, it's at least telling people that this mechanism is available. One of my favorite ones that our county did for reducing the use of pesticides is this bug book. So I'm going to open it up for you. This is what it looks like, kind of like paint chip, right? So I have 4 grandkids, and one is my grandson. He is 10, and he tells me I embellish this story. So I told him I promised I would tell you that I embellish it. But he has the two cousins, granddaughters that are 6 and 8. He loves to take them out into the garden, and he says, "Let's go look for bugs." No, come on, let's go look for bugs. We're going to get Nanny's bug book, and we're going to go look for bugs. And we're going to find the good bugs, because what they want us to do is to keep the good bugs. And they want us to kill the bad bugs. So if you find one of these bugs, you leave it. And if you don't, if the bug doesn't look like this, you get to kill it. So they'll take them out there. He takes them out there, they'll go, this one. So then he'll go through here, and then he goes, it's just a centipede. Centipedes prey on pests and insects in the soil, including slugs, worms, and fly pupae. Centipedes kill their prey with venom. It's a good bug. That centipede's a good bug. And so then they'll go around and they'll look for it, and then if it isn't on here, that's when he loves it. Because he goes, aha, we can kill this one. But a bug book. Now, you see, a brochure would not have gone out to the garden. It needed to be like a product. Something tangible that would be kept around to help people make the decisions that we want them to make. Now what's missing on here, this cost the county about $2.50. What's missing on here that I'll talk about on Monday, what's missing on here is Home Depot as a corporate sponsor. I mean, after all, they sell garden supplies. They should be paying for this, not the taxpayer.